Vincent Dembowski.
And Dufault.
Yeah.
Yes. You all set, Karen, with the technology and everything?
It looks like I have it on.
Oh, yeah, good.
Eve all around wants to do is wear the dresses from Sabine. She's like, I want a Sabine dress today. I want a Sabine dress today. It's awesome. She's passed the small ones on her, and we have a whole dress party this whole weekend. Huge.
All right, being 6 o'clock, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Nice to see so many people. Thank you. All right. Approved minutes from 10/17/22.
I made a motion to approve.
Second. Thank you. Any additions, changes? No, seeing none. All those approved minutes? Motion? Thank you. All right, 3, citizen comment.
Hi, everybody. Kate Foreman, staff resident, parent of 2 grammar school kids. I came tonight to talk about behavior. It's a national situation right now, conversation that's happening kind of in the space of the planet that we're in right now, and there's a really sincere and solid uptick in behavior in other schools nationally. This year during soccer, I saw a lot of things that made me tilt my head and wonder, like, how's everyone in our school doing? And so that spurred me to have conversations with my children, with friends in the community, and then kind of expand my reach a little bit to folks that I don't talk to every day. Some of the things that I think, knowing the rules here, we'll do a little bit of a broad, like, these are the things I've heard, using no names, no specifics.
Thank you.
But some of the things I heard were that folks, there's children have experienced pushing, hitting, spitting, biting. A child was locked in a closet, verbal cruelty, children asking other children to show them parts of their bodies that children shouldn't be asked to show, and general kind of mean behavior, and then rudeness to their adults. These things make me wonder, and the consistency of these scenarios that folks shared with me as a parent, the consistency was that they were shared by their children, but not by the school. And so my question is, what's going on at the grammar school? And I'm wondering if children aren't reporting to their grown-ups in the building because their grown-ups aren't supporting them, or action isn't being taken. And that's what I came to ask tonight.
I haven't heard of anything. This isn't the forum, so have the proper protocol is to go to the teacher and then to the principal if you don't get action from there, and then to the superintendent.
And so my coming here tonight was to just make the board aware the grammar school is having a lot of trouble.
We've tried that routes.
And we've got some really great conversations on the horizon. But I'm not alone in this conversation. But I felt it really important to make the board aware that there's a lot of behaviors happening at the grammar school and a culture of behavior that's happening there that I don't think has been seen in the past. And I think that, like, for you two folks, as you three folks, actually, as senior, parents, I imagine the list of things that I just said out loud, you were surprised to hear.
Well, thank you. We can't make any adjustment at this time, but I appreciate you coming and I appreciate you sharing. Please make sure you're following the proper channels as well with all of your information, because that's the best way for things to make sure that they happen properly. And I do appreciate you not being specific on any person as well, so thank you.
Because it's not one.
Right, thank you. Okay. Any other citizen comments at this time?
So I have a question based on Jeff saying that they have followed the proper channels and that having not happened, what is the next step? If he's saying what I heard him saying is we follow the proper channels. So I'm just trying to pull that back.
That would mean that they've gone.
Gone to the superintendent all that time?
I don't know, I'm holding space for the fact that there was like a disconnect on that piece of the conversation.
Yeah, I would say specifically, people should set up a time with the principal to advise me. And then if they need to come to me, by all means, come to me and set up a meeting. And then you can go into the board if you want to be more specific.
Yeah, I just wanted to give some space to clarify that versus it feeling like it was closed down. I think that that's hearing that, especially as a parent with young children at the school right now, right? Like that's concerning. And I want to make sure that we're not just saying, great, let's follow the proper channels when we're hearing someone say, we have and we haven't followed it. So I wanted to take a moment and give a breath so that we can say, what are the other options? And making sure, like, are there questions about those steps? How can we be supportive as a board to make sure that this is being addressed?
One thing that we'd just like to say towards the process and why it's important from the board's perspective is because we are, in some circumstances, the jury for types of things. And that's why going through the proper channels is important. So ultimately what happens is that when it reaches Kevin, Kevin's going to make a decision on whether it's something the board should be involved in or not, as far as what we should, like, what our actions may or may not be. The people making a grievance towards something might not agree with Kevin's decision on it, and then they could bring that directly to the board if they wanted to. But the things you're describing aren't board, it's not something a board will be involved with, unless it is. And if it is, that's why it's important for the protocols to have been gone through, because then we're being asked to decide something as a jury, to make a determination towards something that has to be decided. And that's why, like, behavior issues or learning issues in a classroom or issues like that, aren't decisions the board makes. It has something to do with, it'll be a board micromanaging something. That's why if once you've gone through the proper channels, the right protocols, the superintendent decides what the board may or may not need to know about it. And that might be a different level of like what information we can give you back. So we're not really supposed to, you say that you're trying to make us aware of an issue, and from that standpoint, that's certainly you're right. whether or not that's a smart thing to do or not, people probably have different opinions about. But as a board, we literally cannot respond to that kind of statement in case it does go to a different level where we're being asked to decide something as a jury, so.
We would become aware when multiple people went through the proper channels and then it came to us. That's how we would become aware of an issue.
Yeah, or like we presented to Justin.
Well, yes,
Like,
unofficially aware, but we would.
But there's nothing wrong with presenting this
Yeah.
information to us in this hearing, it's good, it's good to hear, but we can't respond to you in any way, other than to describe to you what the process is and why.
I have a question, just, I'm the naive guy in the room, and so I'm curious about the process for this. So I understand that there are situations where the school board may adjudicate, but I also understand the school board as being kind of in charge of the school. The school board directs and chooses the principal, for example, and so on and so forth. Is my assumption about that correct?
Well, the principal, yes, in collaboration with the superintendent.
Sure. And so how does the school board inform itself about issues that might be, that community members might be aware of in the school, that maybe haven't reached the point of requiring adjudication? So in your management capacity, how do you become aware of
So that's why.
issues that the community is
So
concerned?
that's why the
concerned
process is like, you approach the teacher first, and if you're not satisfied there, then so you approach the teacher, it may end there. The principal may never know. But if the principal does know, if the teacher does, correspond with the principal about it, now it's in the principal's domain to make decisions about how much further up the chain do I need to go with this kind of information. Then the next person that the principal would go to would be the superintendent. And that's what the superintendents, has to have the kind of education that they do, because they have to understand, is this the kind of issue that I will talk to the board about under this circumstance, or is this one where they might have to adjudicate this, in which case I present it to the board like this. So we become aware through the process, and then ultimately the superintendent deciding where is this process going, which channels is it going to go down, and that's how the information will be presented to us. Like, hey, your students have been doing really bad in math for the last 2 years now, and it's because of this part of what's going on in the education system. You guys should take a look at that and address it that way. If it's behaviors that are being a certain way, then the superintendent might recommend things to us in a different way, saying like, hey, these type of behaviors are a problem. You really need to make sure that you're getting a Head Start program going here, or you had after school, maybe these behavior problems wouldn't be there recommending kind of. So that's the kind of involvement we would have with that type of thing, and knowing like, hey, you have behavior problems. Here's some solutions to your behavior problems that you might want to look at. Or hey, you have behavior problems. This specific issue with these specific people, you're going to have to adjudicate this. Here's all the information I can give you, and the decisions that were made along the way. And those are two different processes entirely. But it's all kind of facilitated up the chain through that type of process.
And there's policies about every step of the way. There's paperwork, there's policies, there's protocol that has to be followed. So,
Well,
I mean,
then what's the point
yeah.
of this citizen comment?
Well, we see discipline reports too. So if something has actually made it to the point where somebody's being disciplined for breaking a policy, then we would see that.
But there actually has to be a discipline report in the first place. And that's part of what I want to understand, is when someone gets spit on, which is considered assault, and a parent isn't told about it, or hears about it from their kid, what are the legal responsibilities of the board and of the school system? And for you, Kevin?
so Kevin can get more into, would you?
No, I want, because I'm a little new at this, and
Yep.
Obviously Kate knows a lot more than I do, but there are things that I heard about that I just feel like are borderline criminal, and like weapons being brought into school.
Yeah, so, yeah, absolutely. I'll give you a couple examples. Usually it goes the other way. Usually the principal suspend somebody, then it's an appeal to my office, right? So then I have to weigh that out, and then it goes to the school board at that point. The building principal's job is extremely difficult, so I don't know as the board would absolutely, they should kind of remain here, as well as myself, right? So that's usually the first step. Do people get in contact with me? Sure, I have 3 emails and a phone call this weekend over incidences that do occur. Do I think that, I agree, behaviors have changed, there's no doubt about it. I don't know the level of detail that you're speaking of. The biggest thing is I do inform the board member, usually the board chair, and then we'll go into non-public if there's an event that has occurred. I think some of the things that you said are, they're concerning for us to hear and take a look at. I'm careful not to talk too much in public because we don't have all the information at this point. I don't. I have confidence in the principal and how she manages things. As Jen said, there is that process all along the way, right? Have I had people question my ability to make it? Absolutely. But is it a judgment piece? Is it a personnel piece? In what specifically is it? That's, I guess, the question. I would hope that, again, back to the principal, and if you want me to have a meeting, I can be at the meeting as well. I don't typically like to, but I have no problem if that is something that people would like to do. And then if you aren't happy with my decision, then it would be turned to go to the school board at that point and meet with those folks.
And the first thing you said, I think, is the reason that I think I came to the table today, was that the first person is the principal. But in all the instances that I heard about that were really surprising, and not something that I thought, quite honestly, like I would hear when I started being, hey, how are you guys doing? How's your kid? Soccer's a little bananas. What's going on with our kids? Everything okay? The common theme was that it's not going anywhere. So you're not hearing about this because our principal either isn't hearing about it or isn't taking action. And so there's a missing link here somewhere where our kids are either not trusting their grown-ups enough to take action on their behalf, and so they're waiting until they get home, and somehow, in some way, their parent is fortunate enough to have the conversation about the really big thing, because there's something up, and they have the time, and they're at the dinner, whatever. They're actually having the benefit of the conversation. Or there's something happening at school where people are aware, but aren't taking action to make sure that kids feel safe enough to talk to their teachers, feel safe enough to feel like they're going to be protected. Because right now, based on conversations that I've had with my own kids and people that I have good relationships with, not every child at Jackson Grammar School feels safe. Our kids don't feel safe anymore.
And I find that unfortunate. We have to be careful. As you know, it's a small community. We have to be supportive of each other, right? We wouldn't want the school or other parents talking about our child.
No one's
And
talking
what-
about any specific.
No, I'm just saying, so you may not be hearing about the situation that might be being managed or addressed because it's not your child, it's someone else's child. And so the situation may be being addressed and that child may be getting coached, or whatever, and their behavior to help the situation. But they're not going to share that with all the other parents because that's confidential information. And you wouldn't want, like if your child was the one doing something, you wouldn't want your situation spread out to say, oh, we're going to take care of this. So,
100%.
right, so if you do have a problem,
Mhm.
and you have concerns, I would recommend you talk to the teacher. And a lot of what you're saying is the coaching, and I'm not sure there was a teacher or a school administration on the soccer field. I don't know, but
I
anyway.
can speak to soccer.
But regardless, like, so come talk to the principal again and say, you know, state your issue, that your child doesn't feel safe with the teacher and then the principal. And then, you know, Kevin is open to having that conversation. And maybe there is something that we have to do, you know, that they need to do on more common ground, because like you're saying, really isn't a common situation here in Jackson to have these situations. You know, all my years here, I've never heard of any of this stuff. So
And that's
there may
the
be
problem.
something, right, so, and there may be something that needs to be done. But again, you have to follow the right chain. There is policies in place for these things to happen. There's confidentiality as well, so a child in a family may be being spoken to and may be in a process of working on things, but they're not gonna share that out there with the community, that this situation is being handled, because it's personal.
But working on it doesn't count if someone gets hurt.
But
It
again,
doesn't count, just like saying the principal's job is hard. There's no excuse, the job has to be done regardless of how hard it is. The results have to, that school has to be safe, kids have to not be bullied, and that's it.
One of the,
There's no
if I
other
may,
outcome.
one of the incidences that you brought up that involved many, many children was the soccer, and I saw Mike raise his hand back there. I took action by sending a letter. We took action by assigning a school staff member to be at every practice. We tried to coach Mike and help him, because parent volunteers managing groups of children is difficult for parents who may not know how to respond or may not feel comfortable if that parent, another parent is there watching and one child misbehaves. It's a complicated piece. So we did take action. I hope Mike would say that we supported him and his coaches. And many of the incidents that you brought up, Kay, we have discussed, and I have become aware of and provided consequences and conversations with families, and we hire additional BCBA people to come in and evaluate kiddos. We have a host of IEP needs and counseling needs and all these things that we stick our necks out and try very, very hard to deal with. So the thing of me, I know we've had conversations about consequences, and you've said to me, I don't feel like that was enough. And that's good. I mean, that's you expressing your opinion. I had my, not opinion, but knowledge of the family, the child, the situation, how many notices I have in that child's file about behaviors, and assigned accordingly, keeping in mind that all of these kiddos are 10 or 11 and under. And our job is not to punish, but to teach them how to be good citizens, how to get along better with each other. So that's what my philosophy is, and that's what I try to do, as well as protect the families whose children are you know, involved in the discipline process. They need to be protected as well. So that's all I want to say on that. And I don't know, Mike, did you want to?
Yeah, I'm Mike Duflo. I've been a soccer coach for the past 2 or 3 years, and I think I might be the Nordic coordinator, but I don't know if that's been voting. And I would say I would agree after there was, I can't speak to the full list of incidents, but you know, I can tell you that after the first incident that happened during a soccer practice, following the guidelines in the handbook, I did speak to both families that were involved and then informed the school, and I did find the school to be very supportive of me and of those families for that incident. They did, I mean, the next practice we did have a staff member there who was volunteering their time to be there, to be present, and as well as working with the administration, they put together a plan to really be helpful. And so I did feel supported in that way. I also really want to recognize Sean Musette, who cleared his schedule entirely to come be there and help out as well, which was awesome that a community member could see a problem, and then just say, you know what, I'm going to clear my entire schedule and I'm going to be there as well to help. And so I think that towards the end of the season, we were moving to a good place with our management of behavior, and moving into the ski season, I've been working with I think I don't know if I'm coordinator yet, so if I'm not, I have not been working with them. If I am, I have been. But working with them on coming up with a plan for behavior management that we feel good about. And it's taking some of the lessons we learned during this soccer season and applying them at the forefront before skiing begins. And so I do feel good moving forward. I do not want to brush off any concerns. They should be addressed, they should be looked at. But I do want to voice my support for the process and what happened in soccer and moving forward to the ski season.
Okay, that sounds very good. Thank you, Mike, appreciate that. So at this point, I can't get into specifics, but if you have concerns about your students, your particular student and how to communicate, I really would recommend that you talk to the teacher, and if you feel you've done that already, talk to Gail, and again, if you feel you've done that, then coordinate a meeting with Kevin. That's where we are with the process, that's what the policy recommends. I appreciate you coming and voicing your concerns to the board, but again, I can't go any further than that with it. So.
And if you're not happy with any of those answers you get, and you have a specific incident, you can always ask to come in front of us in non-public.
Well, that's not actually.
Well, if they went to Gail, they didn't like it, they went to Kevin, they didn't like it.
No.
No, in fact, that's what, it's kind of important that it's.
So that's what it used to be, do we change that policy?
It's not a policy, it's what's our role in this? And if your purpose was to come to make us aware of the situation, you've done that, and I thank you for that. If you're hoping that we take action on it, that's where the process doesn't matter, because we have no authority to take action on those types of things at all. That's not what a board does. Should a board be aware of these things? Maybe they should, maybe they shouldn't. But no matter what the circumstances, if it's a circumstance similar to this, it's not something that a board can take action on at all. We have no authority over it, we have no thoughts over it. It's in where it should be, in the purview of the actual school system. Yes, we have hiring and firing abilities, but we can't do any of that without it going through, the superintendent, basically. So if it's something with action that the board's supposed to take, we can't take that on our own. We can't just be like, oh, we're going to do something about this. We have no authority on it whatsoever. It's really through them. If it's specifically a non-public type of thing, the board would be crazy to go into a non-public session or something like that, because again, someday we might be
talking about, there was a specific incident and they didn't like what the principal said. Then
if the principal
is me.
Then they would go to the superintendent.
Personnel, right, that's what it would be.
Then they would go to you, and then if they didn't like what you had to say, that's it.
Kevin would bring it to us.
They don't have the right to, whether the board goes into non-public or not is entirely up to the board, and it's specific to every single situation, and it has to be for a specific reason why we go into non-public. So what I'm saying is, it's not accurate to say, oh, you can come to us and ask us to have a non-public. I mean, you could, but we should say no to that. Again, it would be up to the vote. The majority of the board decides once we go to non-public for something, we can, we have a specific reason for it. But if individuals are coming from the community and say, hey, will you go into non-public for us? We should say no.
Well, I shouldn't say request non-public, but if they don't like Kevin's answer, they can request.
We're just going to move on from the details. Sasha?
Yeah, and thank you for more opportunity to comment. I know you were on the agenda. But I didn't want this to get lost. So I'll direct it to Kevin and Gail since I heard you. And Kevin, Gail, I hope that you heard and everyone else here heard that there were 2 parents that came from our community tonight in a school of less than 50 kids, right? They're parents of 2 of them, and they said there are kids in our school who don't feel safe. And I heard a really great list from Gail about consequences, reactions to behavior, their reactions to behavior. And as a citizen in this community, as a parent looking at the grammar school as a place where I hope I would have my kids feel safe, I really hope there are some substantial proactive efforts to bring the school community together and talk about allyship and bullying. My children, like many parents in this room, have kids that go to a preschool where when there's an incident of bullying, the children call a circle and sit down and talk through what happened and the consequences and witness the injustice that happened It is not something that gets filed in a folder. It's not something that's a phone call to a parent. And I understand in public schools there are some things that you can't talk about publicly, but you're setting the tone for the school climate. And the list that I heard here tonight was really, really frightening. I heard spitting and hitting, and I think I heard locking a child in a closet. These are behaviors that seem to be like escalating, not de-escalating. And I really hope as the people in charge of the leadership that there's a more aggressive, proactive approach so that we're not talking about consequences that are more severe and saying, well, I wonder what we could have done differently.
Thank you, Sasha. Yeah.
I'm sorry to catch up at the end of this, but I wanted to ask specifically, and I think that this is something that is actionable, measurable, and can be communicated. And I would look to you as school board members to hold our administrators accountable to this change. And the change I'm looking for is communication. I think part of the reason that as a community we are feeling such an alarm and concern is that there hasn't been communication about the incidences that are occurring. Lots of other schools communicate that information without naming names, and that allows us as parents to talk to our children about it so that we can help them be prepared for those situations when they encounter them. There hasn't been communication about that an incident occurred, that an action was taken. There hasn't been communication about what the consequences are. I was told that we have a zero bullying policy. I haven't seen it. And I know that you are saying you can't make that happen, but I do think that we can ask you to hold our administrators accountable to communicating with you when there's an incident, to communicating to the parents, not just of the kid who's being targeted, but if my kid is the person that's involved, I want to know about it too. If they witnessed it, there's a kind of trauma that happens from watching somebody else go through a physical assault. And as parents, we have a right to know that it's happening. And other school districts are doing that. Even other school districts within our community, you can communicate that there are issues or themes of problems so that we're not in the middle of a soccer season and it's October and an incident happened weeks ago. I mean, I think Mike did a great job to bring it to the school board, and I'm glad you wrote a letter, but like daily, hey, this came up today. I mean, we need a faster action. We are way far away from the kind of culture that we used to have. And in that communication, it needs to go to the kids too, to create a new kind of trust, that they can go to the grown-ups in the building and that they will be heard and respected. And we don't have that right now either. So I'm asking you as board members to hold accountable a communication to parents, to every staff member in the building. If you are saying that we're going to keep these two kids apart, but you don't tell every teacher that's in the room with them, how can somebody keep them apart? How can they keep those kids safe? They can't. So I think that there's been a lot of focus on not communicating to keep one person safe, and I have a hard time believing that that's at the benefit of our school culture and community. I think there is information you can share, and I'm asking you to hold that kind of communication accountable.
It's good input, thank you.
So
Appreciate that.
I want to ask, what can we, as a board, so there's this conversation like, we can't do this thing, this has to go through the proper channels. Now we have a group of parents who are saying, hey, there's something going on. So as a board, can we say, hey, Gail and Kevin, we want to have a report on what's going on. We want to have a better idea. Are there steps that we can take along those lines versus saying, you know what, our hands are tied, the only option is to come from these channels. So I'm asking, as a more new board member, to understand what some options are.
I would have to say that I appreciate the feedback, so at this point, it would be something that I would go back and check the policies on what we can share, and then we can meet with Gail and Kevin to see what we can do in front of the.
Great,
So, and then come back to the next board meeting and say, this is what we have proposed to do as a board, or the Gail and Kevin do to the community. So I have a little list of my own, so this is the point where we take feedback in. It's not a point where we make decisions and discussions at this point.
Great, but that's helpful because that's different than saying our hands are tied, we have no action until something comes up and has been escalated. So I want to say like, that's something that I want to support, and that like, so then that we can commit to having that conversation before the next board meeting so that we can be in action versus in waiting for reaction to happen when something goes through the channels and whatever time it is. Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else comments at this point? Any other challenge? Okay, gonna move on though. Thank you all. Presentation of school board programs, FYI, Ms. Carrie.
Pretty mindful of just what happened in this room and try to change my inner to something really wonderful and beautiful. How's that? So I think I know everyone. Yes, Carrie. I teach art 1 day a week here, and we just had a wonderful opportunity to work with a local artist. Her name is Melanie Levitt. She paints en plein air, which means it's a French term, which is a great connection to our awesome French program that we have right now. But it translates to in the open air, and it refers to painting outdoors with a full view of the subject matter. Have to thank and give a shout out to our PTO because that's how this program happens. And I helped write a grant. Alyssa Prince, who's not here, her son Cole, graduated last year, but she's the one that worked really hard on this and applied for with Berlin City, and we were awarded a grant for outdoor learning, and it was a substantial amount, which was really awesome, and we used it. And when we wrote it in plan of using it for this program. As a lot of you know, that White Mountain, the White Mountains have a lot of art history, and that so many people fled to our area, and this was kind of a gateway for artists, and there's so many artist homes in our town, and people painted here. So I think it's really important as an educator to just remind our students always of what's around us, and often we take things for granted. But this area is really, really beautiful, and it's worthy of celebrating, and it has been for a really long time, and to have that opportunity was really special. Melanie is a graduate from RISD. She's extremely talented. She wins awards on her paintings, and she's been painting plein air for over 15 years. She kind of got hooked. She was out on Monhegan Island, if anyone's familiar, it's off the coast of Maine. And she fell in love with this, and she has a gallery up on off of 16, and she runs classes out of there too. She had an assistant with her, Jasmine, who helped too that day. So, in true fashion, it would rain on the day that we were to be down at the bridge sketching away. So, awesome support, sent a text out to like 25 people at school and had tents like immediately. So, we do have a great network. And brought supplies down, and all the students walked down and worked on this the first day. So basically, Melanie went over composition, how to look at something, how to decide what's going to be on the campus and how to do that. So all the kids drew. They used viewfinders to frame their paintings. So they practiced just by drawing on paper first, and then we went on to the canvas and they painted, and it was really fun just to see all the different ages, from the kindergartners to the 6th graders work on this, all their different ability levels. It was just really, really fun. These are some of the K1ers painting away. The next session that the kids had, we did under our outdoor pavilion, so still outside, and in the spirit of there, we had laminated copies of the bridge so we could match colors. But Melanie talked about color theory and how to mix different colors. The really nice thing about this was that we got to use true artist supplies. So we have canvas boards and like legit acrylic paint, which is really nice to work with, and continued the project in here, and everybody painted. Some more just in progress. It's quite a bit to have everyone have their paint palette, supplies, and everything. It was a lot of fun. A lot of happy faces that day. The weather was cooperative. But Melanie went kind of step by step of how she builds a painting, and her technique is very impressionistic and very loose kind of strokes, which I think the kids don't find as daunting if someone was really detailed or something like that. I think can be more intimidating for the little guys. These are some 5th and 6th graders. When it was done, we put together an exhibit in here of all the work. So every student had theirs up and actually had a really great turnout of it, including, it was really nice to see Warren Schumacher from the Historical Society and his wife came. He's in his late 90s. And also Eric Kopel, who lives in our community and is a painter, and that is his living, and he sells and paints amazing. And he came through with his wife, which was really, really cool to see. He was blown away by the talent. Here's just some samples of one of each grade. I'll show you in one. Here. This is a kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. But just so you can see too in person, actually this happens to be the last one. The older kids, of course, we worked on a smaller board where the younger kids, just for skill, got to. So here's 2 in person. And they all get to take them home, and there's talk of Christmas gifts and things like that, which is great. But yeah, the kids loved it, and I just thank the PTO so much for always supporting the arts in our school. Berlin City gave us so much money that we were able to do this, but they also sponsored us in the spring to work with a local mosaic artist, and so all the kids made mosaics this past spring that will be used on all the pillars at the pavilion outside. So we have more work to do on that, but that's been really great. And another just, it's really fun when everybody gets to do something together, and I think that really builds community in our school. And I also just love to hear what kids had to say about each other's work, and when I showed them even in the class the other grades, and just all the different skills that are out there on those campuses, and it was just really, really great to hear children talk about each other in a really positive way about their artwork. And yeah.
Great job.
Oh, we made the front of the Picadilly sign too. Don't worry, it was not a cannabis party, which will quickly that if I was like, what is that headline? So no, that is our 2nd and 3rd graders drawing. So yes, I said, please come down. I called. I was like, there's always sports on the front page. Don't you think art should be here? And so very much convinced them to come down, which was really great. So they did that, and parent volunteers too. It was really just appreciated and helpful to get all the kids down there and help scoop paint and take great pictures. And so, thank you.
Thanks.
Old business? Thank you. Instructional issues. We have 2nd reading and adoption of policies.
Make a motion to, for the 2nd reading and adoption of policies A1 through 6.
We'll vote on them individually. So JJJ, access to public school programs by non-public, charter school, and home educated pupils.
So moved.
Okay.
Second. Yeah, vote
JCA, change of class or assignment, best interest and manifest hardship. JECA, manifest educational hardships, delete and replace by JCA. JIGBJ, home education instruction, access to curricular and co-curricular programs. BEDH, public comment and participation at board meetings. And JFA, tuition policy. Any changes to anything? All right, all those in favor? Thank you. Accept early retirement of Margot Robert. Motion,
So moved.
second?
Second.
All those in favor with
Wait,
sincere regret?
We lost back on this. Was it the rest of the school year?
Jeez.
It's in the letter that she wrote, it's in the minutes that she's replying at the end of the year. Yep. All right, all those in favor with sincere regrets? Accept resignation of Kathy Burney.
So
Second. All right. All those in favor?
And that's effective on December 8th.
December 8th.
Okay.
Was there a
And when will
request?
students be told about that? How does that work? What is the name of your
There isn't a plan for that yet. She doesn't want to tell them until very close to that date.
Yeah.
So,
All those in favor? With regret? Confirm the election of Owen McAndrew as enrichment coordinator, 13.5 hours a week.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? And we have a new one added, number D, for Amy Default.
So
There
moved.
you go. There it is. All those in favor? Great. Business Affairs Budget Status Report. Budget with the Kevin.
It's not bad. We still have money, that's good.
We're at 48%.
December.
Superintendent Principal Search Committee.
Yeah, just a couple of things. Obviously, we have the qualities that we're looking for in the next candidate that we're going to talk about tonight. The next piece is just working with Siri in talking about getting advertisements ready. She put together a little spreadsheet for you. You can take a look at where you would like to go. One of them is extremely expensive, and at this point, I'm not sure it's worth it, but you have a number of different options here. So you can see we'll be spreading this out. And the one that we take a look at is it's called NASDAQ, New England School Development Council, and that's $4,650. It does reach out there a little bit, but the rest of these are kind of broadcast out throughout the country as well. So just looking for a little direction from you folks. What's your budget looking for? If you would like, we can do the NASDAQ. We can start with the others. I would recommend doing all of the others, including the Ed Week and the newspapers, the other online places. The question really is about the NASDAQ, these $46.50, whether you want to start with that right now or not.
Is there any stats on their success rate or anything?
Hard to say. When we do it locally, we haven't used them before. Although I get, Pam, probably Gail, we get flyers from them all the time, electronic pieces. They're headhunters, they're no different like New Hampshire School Board Association or these other places, but we haven't used them specifically. But it is a broader reach.
Kevin, you were saying that one idea would be get everything else started and then see where we're at and potentially escalate to that.
Yeah, our timeline, we're talking about starting in December, so we can take a look at doing the others, and if we aren't getting much action at all after a few weeks, we bump it up.
That's what I think that sounds like a fair plan in terms of our resources right now.
I'd like to hold off on the decision till our next meeting after this, when we decide, if we actually know what we're looking for, when we decide how we're gonna advertise it.
Well, yes, I mean, we're just,
But wouldn't we be advertising in December?
Well, that's the plan,
That's-
right?
yeah,
Just-
right.
just
So
get
our
it
next
out.
meeting is December 18th, so we would be
Our
advertising.
next meeting is in 10 minutes.
Yeah, well,
Oh, yeah.
That's the meeting I'm talking about,
Yeah,
not the next
yeah,
meeting.
yes.
Yeah, or, I mean, like, technically, we can make a decision in that.
how we're gonna advertise.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we-
Give me directions.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Because that's not, just, we're not voting anything, we're just,
No, just, yeah, and that doesn't, you know, formalize vote anyway. Just wanted to get that out to you folks. The other piece is, we will need your direction on how you want to put a couple of community members on there. Because you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, you have 10, you know, committee makeup of 10 people. And you're looking at a couple of community members. How would you like to proceed in selecting those folks?
And how many community members have come forth to offer to be a part of it?
I think I have 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Right now, but it hasn't really been advertised tremendously.
and what is that committee gonna be tasked at?
What is it, what?
What is that committee gonna be tasked at?
Uh,
Going through the actual applications?
Yeah, that's a committee that will review all the applicants, select the candidates, go ahead and develop the questions, interview the candidates, and then if we need to do site visits, that may be something that they do, and then ultimately make a recommendation to me to the Jackson School Board.
So it's two people, I'd like to see one would be a parent and one would be a non-parent.
What's been the protocol in the past? Has there been like an open call for, hey, we have.
Usually we draft people, you
Yeah.
know, usually it's through the PTA,
Yeah.
right? That's what typically I would do.
Yeah.
Conway Elementary, you go to the PTA, hey, look, we're looking for a representative to be on.
Which is what people have
You
come
folks
forward.
like to get involved, let's put 2 seats on there, and have 2 folks there.
So we have 2 people who've come forward, and we have how many
At
communities?
least 2, yeah, you gotta have to check my emails.
Okay.
We have 10 people on this committee.
There are, yeah, a committee of 10.
2 board
Between
members.
staff.
2 board members, yeah, Jen and Micah,
Assistant
myself,
administrative assistant.
Pam, 3 staff members, 1 upper house, 1 lower house, 1 unified art.
Mhm.
You have the admin assistant, which I think is key, Susan Ross Parent, and then 2 community members.
So Kevin, what's the next step that you need from us on that committee?
Direction on how you want to do it. You want, I can reach out to the PTA president if there's an active PTA president. You guys can draft people if you'd like. Okay, it's up to you.
I'd say reach out to the PTA
Yeah.
and then and see
Look
what
for
we get.
one,
Yeah.
and then a community member.
But we already have 2 people who are volunteers, who, some of them might be parents already, right? So,
Yeah, I'd have to
He
take.
does to go back.
yeah, so I'm just saying, like, you know,
We haven't officially passed yet, though, have we?
No.
So that's just it, like,
Yeah,
it's
let's
great,
do the
it's
official
great
ask.
that there's 2 people that throw their names in,
yeah,
but that doesn't put them to the front of the queue automatically.
absolutely.
So,
But let's make sure that they also know that there's an official asking space if they're not inside of the PTO plus.
Right, but yes, through the PTA. That's what you want me to do, go through the PTA. And then the community member,
Are we doing something on the e-news?
I'd look for the community member, we can go to the e-news or we can go to the chamber.
and send it to you, can
Mhm.
do another.
I'm on the
Like,
chamber.
go ahead and do it, send
I'm
it
on the
back to
chamber,
you.
yeah.
Good.
Yeah,
Okay. Got it. All right. Other than that.
I'm just gonna be a stickler on this one detail because I need to understand it.
Yeah.
So with the people who have offered to be part of it, they will also they will get the same missive. It's if they don't happen to be part of the chamber, or they don't happen to be part of the PTA, they're still going to get the information back, that whatever is happening.
That we're looking for
Yes,
something,
Yeah.
yes, and then we haven't decided yet.
exactly, and so then they come forward. Yeah.
Can I ask a question? So Jerry, can you share with us why is it important to you that one of those people be a non-parent? Because it seems like actually a pretty small representation if only 2 of the people out of 10 on the committee are going to be community members and you're asking that only one of those be a parent?
So I actually haven't put a whole lot of thought into that,
That's not what
other than what we've done historically. So whenever we've done this, either for a principal, for whatever reason, we ask, or we'd like to get some perspective that is outside of, in the school community, and that's the reasoning behind it. Because again, it's the school goes beyond just the school, and there might be important opinions that reside outside of someone who has a vested interest and a bias because they have a child in the school system. And that's the reasoning behind it. And again, it's, the board can decide whatever we want to do, and in fact, the next thing we decide to do is like, so time is starting to become sensitive here. If this committee wants to get up and running before our next board meeting, then we could authorize the school chair to say who those committee members are and aren't. If the school board wants to have input on who those people are, then we wouldn't do that. So that's another option the board has. Like, so if you want to have input into who those community members are, then we'd want the whole board to rule on it. If we, or we could say, because it's time sensitive, Jen can decide who those community members are.
Yeah, I think the board can have input on it. I mean, we knew this was coming down the pipeline. We've been doing all this work to make sure that we weren't off the back of it. So let's keep doing it in a really focused way and get the right people on the bus versus being some sort of like fire drill and being like, we need to fill a seat, right? Like, let's actually put the word out. And I think Yetta brings up an interesting point that I am a board member who's on this committee who has children in the school, but other than that, like, it is an interesting proportional representation that if you have a 10-person committee and there's only 2 people who are parents, and just one because de facto I'm a board member, is that the adequate representation, or do we want to look at that a little bit different because it is such a big committee? I understand, like, normally saying with committees, let's have a parent, let's have a community member who isn't a parent. But if this committee is a large committee, is that the right makeup?
Well, maybe you could find that community member who had a child in the school as principal before the current one and with the current one. They might be able to give you some good feedback on what to look for.
First, we have to find people who are interested.
Yeah.
We have a couple.
Okay, so we have a couple, but we have to cast the net out, see who we get, and then we can make a determination based on that. I would like to have somebody who's in the community because it is tax dollars that are being spent, and the school motto is it's a school that lives in a small community, and we embrace the community, not just the parents. So if you want to continue to have that bridge with the community when it comes to taxpayers paying for this teacher, and we're probably going to be looking to increase the salary as well or make some changes, it is wise to have somebody who is not just a parent, but also a community member on board. So that's just my say. And eventually, hopefully this principal will be here after your children are done here.
Absolutely.
Besides mine were. So
I would
then
recommend
you're not a
the 2
parent
best
anymore.
candidates,
You're just,
regardless of whether
so let's cast our net out, see who we get, and then we can go from there. But I would like to have those 2 options. And then, it'll get smaller as we get to the interview pooling process, the questions.
So how do we do this with the timing that we have right now? Because we're trying to get this all to happen.
Drop an e-news
Okay.
and then the school newsletter, all the same that we do for anybody who wants to volunteer.
But is this going to happen before the December 18th?
Yeah, we'll do 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
be contact.
So I think something I would understand is that we're happy to wait till the next board meeting before we name the committee. Okay. Now, makeup of the committee is going to be about 10 people. We're good with that. So that means there's 2 slots that are open for the committee. Now, Jen and I both was that we'd like to see one be a parent and one be a community member at large. But that's a decision that the majority of the board has to make. So this is the chance now to looking for, we cannot care who those people are. It's just like he said, let's just take the best 2. But again, it's
Can't just decide that it's
I agree. I think that the idea of this doesn't mean anything to me, and it does to Keith. So what I'm saying is, we get to decide as a majority what we decide here. We can just say we're going to look for 2 community members and leave it at that, and then at our next meeting we can decide who those are and make a decision then. But if we're specifically looking for a parent and a community member that's not a parent, that's a different
Not a
thing.
current parent.
That's a different thing than saying whoever those 2 people are. Because that's how we would narrow the list down how we decide at our next meeting. So we have to decide that tonight. I'm just saying from my 2 cents worth, I'd like to see one be a parent and one not be a parent.
And when you say that, do you mean have never had a kid that's gone through the Jackson Grammar School, or doesn't currently have a
Yeah.
student in the Jackson Grammar School?
I don't know if I need to break it down into that specific, but someone who doesn't currently have a student and
So a parent with a current student and someone who doesn't have a current student, that's a
I mean, it's a
separate-
small community, it's a time commitment, so I'd like to cast the net out that we're looking and see who comes forward.
And to me, the real reason behind that, after I've thought about it a little bit, is because these things don't happen in a vacuum.
Yeah.
Whispering happens in a small community, and things get discussed in certain circles. And if the only place that certain circles being discussed is with other parents, then there's not going to be as much credibility in the overall community. If someone isn't from outside of that circle talking to people in the community. And that's the main reason why.
Yeah, I support looking at a community member and someone that has a child in the school. I think you get that sense of community. There's, you know, the 3 teachers from the school, you've got to arrange that, and, you know, they've been parents and in many cases and had kids in school, maybe even here, you know. I'm not concerned that they both have to have kids currently. I think they'll get enough feedback. And this is a small community, and important for the community members to be part of the whole process.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna cast the net out, we'll get the news, the information, out to e-news, all the regular channels. Okay, so that when we meet again, we'll have people with the name.
Along those lines, I do have a recommendation for salary range, if you want to talk about that.
Yes.
$84,000 to $94,000 a year is my recommendation. So you feel free to entertain.
Well, that's in line with everything else, so I think that's spot on, based on the research that we've done. So I'm good with that. We want to advertise that. We'll get to that point.
Well, we're not really.
We're getting there.
Yeah.
Close. Yep.
I like that range. I think that, you know,
That's more than
if we go less than that, we're going to narrow the pool down way too much.
That's it. Budget development is going on. We do meet coming up on the 30th for Jackson.
What's your email?
What time?
I don't know if I'm going to email or anything, but I.
You probably will tomorrow.
Oh, okay. What is
Yeah,
it?
they sent about 2 firemen to Daniels Key.
The 30th?
We'll send it email, but it's the 30th. Yeah, 2 o'clock. Yeah,
2 o'clock.
2 o'clock on the 30th. And that's it.
And that's in the, that's it.
That's it.
I'll get an official email.
Great.
And who's the other one? Sharon?
Yeah, Jared. I'll remind you both. All right.
Jen, you all recommended and approved Amy Dufault for something that's not on everyone's agenda.
Oh, sorry, yes, it was last minute.
One-to-one special
The
ed.
one-to-one special aid.
Her,
It was a late hire Friday.
cool,
After
it's just like,
the-
I think, it's a familiar name to another one.
Yeah, we're pretty happy. Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
cool.
Okay, so this will be the, strategic plan update, thank you.
Very good. So I don't know if everybody wants me to go over everything one by one, but in terms of the first part was personnel. Most of those items were things that the budget committee and the personnel committee had addressed recently, so I haven't put anything, if you look at the first column there, November 21st, that's tonight, I haven't written anything in there because we haven't met with the budget committee or made any final decisions on that yet. On the next page, community involvement, we had completed the first, create community connections. And the second one, increasing connection to the Jackson Public Library, that's in place now. We're taking the kids there. We have a consultant that's working with us every week to work with both the library and the teachers, so that's in place. And I sent a little suggestion to our common board member about looking at, since the library is looking for someone, might that be an opportunity for us to combine efforts?
That's a great idea, yep.
So we can talk more about that in a bit, but the PTO has developed a role statement based on the connection and action to support the school. Victoria did the contacting new families about buddies at the very beginning of the year. And has reached out to all of the students in the middle and the high school as per the job description. We have, our newsletter is still going home. We're getting some pricing to make some changes in our website to make it ADA compatible and also compatible with SAU 9 so that we can make use of the app and some of the other features. So I'm getting numbers right now as to how much there will be an increase in cost for that service, but we're looking at that right now.
Great.
We've changed all the controls. We have a new technology facilitator, so she is now in control of Facebook and starting to put out communications to families through that. And we held our first student-led conferences this fall, from 1 through 6. Okay, we just did a traditional conference for us.
Nice.
The portfolio defense process, which we had started last year, we'll continue to do that for our 6th graders. And the one about ELOs, that really applies mostly to field trips and people coming into our building. We're continuing to do many of those kinds of things. I listed them in another spot. Under technology, the tech plan did not quite get finished back in June, so our new person has read it over and we've met, and she's continuing to work on it. I anticipate that will definitely be finished probably before the end of the school year. Hopefully a little sooner than that, but I want to get some flexibility with that. And as far as the residency for the White Mountain signs that we talked about, the PTO is trying to access a grant to bring them in hopefully in the spring. All of our kiddos have devices at home. Those who didn't own them have been provided them by the school. And we're continuing to remain updated and one-to-one with both iPads and Chromebooks. So that's going on. Now that we have an after-school coordinator, I know he's already talked with Cynthia about some potential robotics or coding activities for kiddos after school when that gets going full bore after the holidays. Professional development, we did some at the very beginning of the year regarding our assessments, and there will be another one at some point in the spring for staff. One of the kind of wish list items that we have is a touch smart screen. That's the latest technology with whiteboards and smart screens where kids and faculty can touch it. It's on a cool cart, wheels around, it's very neat. So there'll need to be, if we get a grant that we've written, we will need to do some training with staff in how to use that. The revised job descriptions, no action has been taken. I might refer that to the personnel committee to look at our job descriptions, and we hoped to include some minimum competencies for our new hires in terms of their ability to use technology.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah.
As far as the facility, I think the facility committee has gotten some quotes and prices. I anticipate that we need to review those at some point. So I didn't write too much in the rest of the objectives pending that recommendation from our discussion of the facilities committee. Student growth and achievement. We initiated an outdoor learning committee back in the spring. There really hasn't been any forward motion on that yet. So that made the next couple of things just not applicable at this time.
Is there a plan for the next steps for action for that? As someone who's been part of that, what do you think is the best next step there, Gail?
There is not,
Okay.
and I'm finding with staff shortages and the other committee work that's being done and the math professional development that's pulling our teachers away from school frequently for that kind of work. There's not a lot of room for it right now, so maybe later in the year when some more opportunities open up, we can look back and go back to that.
I saw someone building something outside.
Oh, yeah, yeah, well, that's what I wrote down underneath. We built a longhouse, we've done the plein air, the music program, as I announced at one of the meetings, has grown. All of our kiddos almost.
It's like a yurt thing going on out there.
Well, that's a longhouse,
Oh,
a Native
longhouse.
American
Okay,
longhouse,
yeah.
yes, the upper house has been working on
I
that.
have a vantage point, so see everything.
And we did the cooking potatoes and harvesting potatoes. We've done several field trips to various locations. The enrichment coordinator has finally been hired. We've returned to having buddies and all-school meetings and full school recess, which is a blessing and a curse. So those were under aligning systems of curriculum and instruction to support the vision of outdoor education and active hands-on multisensory units. But I know that there were more that I've forgotten. I don't know if any staff would want to add to that. But all right. And as far as the, we've purchased a couple of instruments, we've had some donations. Although we cannot provide every musician with a free instrument, we're working towards that as our goal. And as I mentioned, all of the fourth grade students took an instrument this year. It's been rare to have our entire fourth grade class sign on to an instrument, so I hope those of you from the fourth grade are enjoying your practice time at home. We are having a meeting on December 8th with the staff around, there are several artist in residency programs that we're looking at. We can't do everything, so we will be having a decision-making staff meeting on December 8th. There was another theater group proposal, there's the White Mountain Science piece, there was, years ago we did circus with PE and adaptive sports, so there's a proposal about that. So we're going to kind of weigh out some of our options for a spring artist in residency again. We will do something one way or the other. The math cohort, as I said, the teachers have been out meeting with their SAU 9 colleagues to develop math strategies for instruction, and the coach also comes to us and models lessons for them, so the math PD is going along really well.
Can I ask you about that? About math, can I ask, is it?
We're in small form. Is it a quick question?
Quick question, yeah. So I understand that at least some of the classes are quite far behind in the scope and concepts that was laid out based on the new curriculum and how many weeks each of the different units should take. And I wonder, as a community, if there's a plan in place to sort of address that. I know it's a new curriculum, but we're pretty far behind, about a unit and a half at least, I think, based on the information we were given on Cranston.
Yeah, I would have to do some research on that yet.
So you don't know that you're behind?
I know we're a bit behind. How much and how significant it is, I can't answer. No.
So there's
and I'm not sure it's every grade level either. So
yeah,
that's why I need more information to be able to answer that in an honest, clear way.
Sure.
And I can't do that right now. The preschool edition, as I said, the facilities committee is still working on those kinds of things. Enrollment projections I will have for the budget committee next week. And then the rest of them, the survey was finished, the after-school program, as I said, it's taken a while to get off the ground, but I feel optimistic that Owen's a great guy and he's been communicating with a lot of different people in the community, and he's anxious to get started. So we're getting started after Thanksgiving on a part-time basis, and then hope to have, we're still short of one individual, so he's limited as to how many students he can take right now, but we're still working at it, so.
Can you speak a little bit more to like what the vision is to have, like you had said in here, the hope to have it be operational full-time in the vision that was passed by the board for the enrichment committee in January, or
So-
what do you think?
We're looking at Mondays and Wednesdays will be general enrichment, all different variety of topics. We're going to be supporting the Nordic program with Mike, so he will be, let's see, Mike, I haven't officially hired you yet, but, so he will be available on Thursday afternoons to participate and learn the ins and outs of Nordic. He's also going to volunteer and assist at ESSC because the vision was to have a school staff member be in charge of soccer and Nordic and hopefully address some of those issues that we've had around behavior and connection to the school and following school rules and so forth. So,
And outside of the sports, to have like a consistent after-school program, which was part of what the board put together, is well, how do you, like, what do you think the horizon is on that right now?
well, as I said, we've talked about arts, we've talked about technology, talked about dance. You know, there are a lot of different directions, cooking, foods. He's going to get out and try to find experts in our community in one area or another. And
Awesome. I'm not trying to
find that talent.
I'm gonna keep asking because I'm not quite getting to the answer that I'm looking for. That's fantastic for all those things. I'm trying to
In
understand.
terms of staffing,
Yeah, or just having, instead of like, we're gonna have these programs on these different days to say, you know, what we had passed as a board, and I went back and looked at the, what we presented as the enrichment committee, and what the board said, yes, we want to go forward with this, which is having consistent programming, which could be a multitude of amazing things, but to have a consistent programming that's, you know, accessible to the most amount of parents. Like, how close do you think we are? Do we have like a big gap that we have to get through hiring another person or getting parent volunteers, that sort of thing?
I'm changing the 30-hour assistant position to accommodate and slide their hours so that we will have that person work till 4:30. And assuming I can find a good qualified person to do that, then again, it provides more connection with the school for maintaining discipline and topics for study. But yes, the vision was to be every Monday, Wednesday, Thursday going forward after the break, providing I can hire a second person. So he's going to start with himself and a volunteer or a parent or somebody else, but for me, I don't feel comfortable enough not having someone that I know is going to be there every Monday and Wednesday with him, especially as a new employee, until I am able to assess how it's going.
So how many
And
kids will be?
given the concerns around behavior and, you know, all of that, I need to keep the group size small enough and to feel comfortable that it will be safe for kids.
And what's the current ratio that's gonna be available then?
It will be 10 now, and with the second person, we can go up to 18 to 20.
Awesome. So there's another position that's open that you're trying to add hours and have them slide to go till 4:30?
Rather than hire 2 new people,
Yeah.
and in an aide position and an after-school position,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think
That's
of the
awesome.
most creative way to meet all those needs, so it was to put them together and hire someone who'll start later and work later.
Great.
To cover both of those bases.
Okay, cool. Is that job post out there?
It isn't posted yet, because,
We
we
said,
had
yeah, that's
resignations.
next time. Okay. I think, from, you know, I've heard a lot of buzz, which is excitement about having Owen on board. And so, you know, making sure that we're sharing that with the school, the current parent and caregiver community to be like, hey, this is, I'm kind of like wearing the board hat, and then also what I've received from information, be like, hey, we're close to this. We're not quite there yet, right? I think everybody's really excited to get the enrichment sign up and be like, in order for us to, you know, take to the chains, use a climbing analogy, whatever, to like finish, cross the T, what we need to do is to have this person hired. So like, let's get the community involved to try to get that person hired. I think that could be really helpful. And I know that there's excitement and there's some questions around that. So thank you for answering those questions that directly. It's really, really helpful to see And what I would love is to get our community in action around that and say, how do we go solve that and help you solve that? So you're not just out there saying, I have this wonderful idea of how to combine these jobs, like, let's go find that person so that, you know, we resolve the equity issue of being the only school in the valley without an after-school
Yeah,
program.
so since that information is about 30 minutes old.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because we just got.
Definitely, no, but I'm just saying, like,
accepted.
we're just excited about those next steps and getting it. Yeah, there's just been a lot of questions in the parent community around that.
Okay, ask a
We all done?
question about student-led conferences.
I'm sorry, pardon?
Can I ask a question about student-led conferences?
Okay.
I had a question for Gail's. I don't know if
On what?
that's, on some of the stuff that Gail just said.
Yeah, we're gonna stick to the agenda. I know you had, is that,
This was my report tonight.
that's your report? Okay. So, was your question on the agenda?
My question is about what Gail just talked about.
Okay, go ahead.
Earlier, you mentioned two different things about buddies. One was a family liaison buddy and one was a student buddy.
Oh, right, yes.
And are both of those things happening now?
Yes,
Yes. And did one or the other stop for a while?
yes, both of them did.
So we didn't have like the big buddies with the students in the school?
Not during COVID, no, we didn't mix our classrooms up at all.
So the COVID thing, it stopped with COVID.
Yes, and so now our fourth, fifth, and sixth graders are reading or playing math games or doing activities with the younger students every Friday.
I have another question about the strategic plan process, which is so awesome to see it happening. Hopefully it wasn't too painful. We had talked about having a strategic plan committee meeting before it was shared out to the board.
Yeah.
Didn't happen.
Do not.
Okay, great.
I don't know.
Awesome. Going forward,
Yeah.
that would be, I think, the right way to do it.
Absolutely.
And I think would give us some time to ask some of these questions so that we could all be here to support the next pieces with it. So,
Yeah, I thought it was a little backwards.
yeah, so I just wanted to point that out.
And since I took Gail's question, Kate, what was your question? I don't know if we'll get the answer.
Student-led conferences, so they're just on the agenda. So student-led conferences are new. They were cute, lovely, sweet, as far as our children are concerned. When, is that the approach to conferences moving forward? Is that an SAU 9 wide, we're having our children in the room for these conversations? And what's the avenue when, I know culturally at the Grammar School, some parents feel like there's a division of the property, and it's the staff are on the inside and the parents are on the outside, and at arm's length. And what's the feeling of how do you access conferences for harder conversations that maybe your children aren't there for? And is it an SAU 9-wide decision that our conferences now are student-led? I'm just curious.
Yes, it is SAU 9-wide. And any parent can call and request conference at any time.
Kevin, it looked like maybe you had a different response.
Yeah, no, I think student-led conferences is something we want to empower students to own their own learning. But anytime parents should feel comfortable setting up a conference, absolutely, yeah. So they do not replace, if you want to come in and meet with your teachers or administration about your child, I mean, some schools have it built right into their schedule, other times there's other days for that, but it's not a replacement for that whatsoever.
And if I could add, a lot of that has to do with the portrait of a learner piece from our strategic plan, both here and in Conway. And one of the things we want for our students is that they self-assess themselves and set goals for themselves and look at how they're achieving their goals and where are their strengths and where are their challenges. And so this is a way to kind of teach them to do that in a structured, safe way with their teacher and their parent. So it's hoping to develop that ability for them to later, be able to present their learning and, be self-aware about their strengths and weaknesses and how to use them.
Okay. Good, okay, so committee reports, so policy committee, we have a meeting coming up next week, so we have nothing new on the policy committee. Personnel committee, I have not been to a meeting, so I don't think we have have anything?
Oh, we're probably gonna have a couple coming up.
We have a couple coming up, yeah, so Facility Transportation Committee, so I believe Keith has some information in reference to the bus.
I do. A couple things I have to say about that. We had a meeting over at the Bartlett School with myself, Scott Grant, Gail, Joe, all of us drivers. The first thing I want to say before I talk about the content of the meeting is I was very shocked to find out when we got there that none of the bus drivers knew why they were there. They all thought someone was getting fired. Everybody had a chip on their shoulder. And they were not told at all what the meeting was about. They were just told, you gotta show up. So we walked in that meeting, every single one like this, and who's getting fired, that's what legit. I talked to 3 or 4 of them after that meeting, and they all thought that someone was getting fired. And I was kind of shocked that, hey, we're having a bus meeting, could have been, hey, we're having a bus meeting to talk about sharing routes. And I don't know, I just to say I was shocked.
Did you give that feedback back to the appropriate person who scheduled the meeting?
No, this is the first time. I don't know.
I didn't schedule it, but I will carry the
I don't know
message.
who scheduled the meeting.
Wouldn't it be like Jim or something?
Yeah, I haven't spoken to him yet.
Well, I would suggest that you give him the feedback.
But as far as the content of the meeting, we met to talk about, hey, since COVID started, we stopped helping each other on our bus routes.
Mhm.
I wasn't on the board when that happened. I don't know if that was a directive from the board.
Yes, it was, we couldn't share anything.
Okay, well, they've been doing it.
Right,
They've been doing it.
okay, so,
So it's happening already. It was almost like we didn't even have to have the meeting, because
Okay.
if they said to the bus drivers, we're talking about shared routes, and they said, oh, we're already doing that.
and they're gonna assess some of the drop-offs, like at the town hall.
It's all done, they got it all worked out, right, we're right back to where we used to be.
Okay, so we're using our buses as efficiently as possible?
That's a different story. That's not what our meeting. And I don't know if that's for this meeting, but, yeah, one of the things that I don't know, when I was first on this board, still happens every day, and most people probably don't know about, is that Conway uses our buses and we don't get compensated for it. Not really reporting anything from a meeting I had this week.
Okay,
I don't
keep
know.
that into your hat, all right. High School Options Committee, Darlene.
We met this afternoon. Our next meeting is December 19th. And just moving forward.
Okay, I would like to say that I was at the meeting today, and I think the committee needs to have, the committee members need to be there and accountable throughout the month, not just show up at the meeting. So they need to report in and work on things with Darlene. I know that we've had some trouble with people who are part of the committee. If you can't be part of the committee, then you need to say so. You can't just take 2 months off or a month off. We really need to keep the ball rolling, and Darlene has been the main focus for that. And I feel like bad that she's not getting the support that she needs from the committee. So if somebody is on the committee and they want to talk about their involvement with the committee, feel free to talk to me or to Darlene about it. But we don't want to leave her out there hanging. So I appreciate everything you're doing, Darlene. And I do appreciate what everybody else is doing as well. But we just need to keep the ball rolling on that.
And is the committee supposed to still continue down its original? And there was a lot of confusion.
So there was a lot of discussion during the committee as to taking it back. I feel that they are still gathering the information that's needed. I also think that perhaps, and then Jerry, you can jump in, but that we may ask the question to make the committee members feel more comfortable, if that's the case, to make sure that any school that we're investigating is open to us coming there. That was a question that came up. Not to facilitate a contract, but just, are they open to Jackson students even coming to that community, that school? So that was a question. So I'm gonna follow up with Darlene and figure out what questions the committee needs. Okay? All right. Anything else you'd like to add, Darlene?
No.
Okay.
I would look at on that. I'm new on the high school options committee. I'm new.
Yeah.
I was put on this committee. I don't really know that it's the right path for us to be going right now. I'll continue doing that, but I think that we need to have a broad discussion on what that committee's for. You know, as we talked about in that meeting earlier, I could go get information from Kenna. If I wanted our students to go to Kenna High School, I'm gonna go get information that's not sourced, like we talked about, I forget who mentioned that earlier, and no credibility to it, and it could be totally biased that I'm leaning towards Kenna, or vice versa. I go get the Freiburg information, I collect this information, because it's not apples to apples. I don't know how accurate this information is gonna be.
Well, we can have that discussion, and we'll have another subcommittee at the next meeting to discuss. But I think they're doing a good job, and I think that they're going in it with an open mind to not be biased. You know, I don't.
But it could be
but
biased by the person who you speak to as well. You know, you don't know. Anyways. I think we're just cart before the horse, but I'll continue that path.
I don't think so, okay. DEI, committee?
Yeah, we had a good meeting after the board directive, and we're moving into action on all of the pieces that we laid out that the board approved. So as part of that, the board gets to do our anti-bias, or our, I don't know what it's called, Gail, it's our anti-bias training, which we're gonna find out more about. Gail and Pam are looking at some different consultants to use, so that's gonna be awesome. Be good bonding for us.
And when is that next meeting? 'Cause I think I was put on that one.
Yes,
too.
you are. We are still working on our next meeting date, to be honest.
Our schedule is a little weird.
Gail and I had like 13 emails about that today. Yes.
I'm sorry.
So keep them a little on. The safety committee?
October was fire prevention month, fire drills. And, are we following the agenda?
My citizen comment is for Gail in the next round.
Okay.
Oh,
I guess we'll have to wait.
All
Cool.
right, sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Same draft, yeah.
Beyond that, we're just following the safety plans that were put into effect.
I had a question for the safety committee, and I talked to Gail about it today, she was like, I wanted to know, and I asked her to find out how much it would be to put peepholes in these doors. In here, and here, and here. You can't, how much money it would be
Peepholes?
to put peepholes in the doors right here. You can't see out the door, you can't see anything that's going along the sides of these buildings. And people open the door all the time. I've knocked and someone opens the door, they don't have a clue who it is.
Yeah.
Or if I'm a
Have to
woman,
be a
or, pardon?
Have to be a low people, right? I mean, who's gonna look, who's looking out? I mean, the chief?
No, if somebody knocks,
Yeah,
then they don't have to
I
open the
know,
door to
I
see
get
who it
that.
is. Yeah, I mean, I just think it's, every hotel door has one, I mean, I don't know. I just,
Survey and safety.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
They
could
should
say
be
please go around with
They
the
should,
flashlights,
but
right?
you can't talk to anyone through those doors, so you'd be half opening the door in the process.
so I'm just curious, I would feel safer, like, I've been let in, and who knows if I have somebody strong-arming me to get in the building and using me, you know?
Or we
I
could
don't
put
know.
a sign on the door to say not an entry, go to front
yeah,
door.
that's my feeling.
that's really what it should be.
It should be,
Yeah, it should be an
But-
exit only.
people aren't always doing that.
Yeah. I can take a look into
Yeah.
it.
So, as a matter of practicality of what
Yeah.
actually is happening, I would rather see some people, not saying that you should, you can still sell the person and go to the other side, but then you at least know if
Yeah, you don't wanna.
you can see. There's no window. No, no problem. So, anyway, thank you.
You shouldn't open the door anymore.
Well, I know, but you would want to see, you could still see.
Kevin's gonna look at it, we have a thing.
Kevin,
Oh,
Thank you.
yeah.
on your list.
All right, and the strategic plan, we went
Through, we have
through,
a
and
time.
Whitney
we're gonna keep up on it.
Whitney Center's nothing. They've got a new plan, they've got a person that's taking care of programming, so you'll see a lot more Facebook representation there, and, you know, using the building a lot.
Good, I see that other, but. Okay, date for next meeting, December 19th, 6 PM. Consider changing the January meeting, obviously, we always do that, so that's fine.
You guys are good with that?
Yep.
Yep.
March 2nd, 7 PM. I think we're good for now. And the budget hearing, February 2nd. Committee assignments, they've all been updated, you guys all got your new sheet, right?
Yep.
Okay, thanks. We're all good? Any other
She just now?
No, it was in the packet.
It's in the packet.
Yeah, it was at the last page. And citizen comments, Kate.
Hello, anyone else? I just have a question.
I have the after-school program, but I don't think I don't know who I got it to.
That's okay.
You can just ask it, and we can get it back to you.
Well, it's, so they hired a new guy, which is awesome and exciting, and I just love that. It sounded like from the letter that they're only allowing a certain amount of students because they're not the second person. Is there going to be another adult with that other person? Because I don't think that's been shared.
Well, they're still trying to figure out who that next person is gonna be, and yes, it would be an adult. Whether it be a parent, or volunteer, or hire somebody.
You're asking about when the enrichment rolls out that has been already shared. Is there going to be another adult besides?
Exactly.
Yes.
That's,
So I
that
think
was
that-
the form, we received a form this
But
time
without a lot of
students,
information.
and I'm like,
Yeah.
wait a minute, what's going on?
Yeah, so what I heard Gail say was that, yes, there was going to be someone, but I think that would be a really good thing to clarify, because I think there's been, to clarify the gap.
Okay.
Okay.
And we just hired the person, so we're still getting there.
Yeah, no, there was a letter that went out to families to sign your student up for next week, I believe.
The 30th is when it starts.
Yeah.
Who can, how, since Gail isn't here, how does that get back to her to ask her to clarify that?
I'll ask her.
Okay.
Next week.
Great.
Okay.
I have a question, I'm confused about the after-school program. So Owen can be with 10 students by himself, is that correct?
That's the guideline that she
Yeah.
mentioned tonight.
And then if he has someone to help him, he can have 18 to 20 students?
I think those are self,
And again,
No.
I think she
Yeah.
meant 10 students, but there would be another adult teaching whatever they was.
Well, that's not what she said.
No, that's what's confusing.
That's why, that's my question, that's what I'm trying to confirm. I wrote down 10 students with Owen, which surprised me a little, and then 18 to 20 students with Owen and an additional person.
That is what she said.
Okay.
That's what she said.
But I think there'd be a residence person that's also an adult there, right?
Is the principal going to stay at the
Instruction on the
school?
topic?
If they're 5 and under, you have to have 2.
No, but I thought the plan on the after-school
Right.
stuff was to
By
do,
age.
like, activities, where Owen was gonna be going looking for community members to come in and teach how to cook, or teach how to do this.
That would be some of them.
No,
Okay.
okay.
And they wouldn't be responsible for.
So what is the policy? Is it okay for one adult to be alone with 10 kids?
And without an administrator in the building, where's the administrator?
no, that's
Yeah,
fine. I
that's-
mean, Project Succeed, they do tons of kids in Concord. There's no, it would be a board policy. Usually it's only for supervision on field trips and those type of things. But it's 10 to 1 is easily. Overnight trips, 6 to 1, something like that.
But as Micah asked, during Project Succeed, I believe that there's an administrator in the building during that time.
Site coordinator, they aren't an administrator, they're just somebody with duties. But they don't have to have a building level administrator.
As a board, do you want to ask for something different?
I would defer to the principal.
I don't know, I mean, you have a coach who coaches,
Yes.
you know, a team of 15 to 20 kids, and there's not an administrator always there. I think you're gonna have to go through that process, but to me, it would not be unreasonable to have a person, full-time enrichment provider, with a support person to have 15 to 20 kids.
With a support person, but that's having 2 people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think,
For him to do it with
For
10, I
15,
think that's
yeah.
reasonable.
That's a teacher has a kid, has 20 and 30 kids in a class by themselves.
Right, but he's a brand new hire. I mean, that just surprised me.
Brand new and most of the time, I don't know, that's
You gotta be
crazy.
careful about talking about people's qualities in
Yeah.
public.
I mean, we hired him, and that's what the gals recommended, so.
But what if there's
We can
some
ask
kind of emergency or something? What happens?
That's a good question, and I don't know the
But
answer to
I
that.
feel like that should have been a question before, foreman at the Senate.
I'm sure it's 911, police department, fire
Yeah.
department, whatever it happens to be. That's,
I thought when we did the committee that the understanding was that the goal was that if there was going to be, well, the goal was to have 2 people so that you have the redundancy, so that you have the additional piece. And if there wasn't, to be able to backstop that one person with another volunteer or whatnot. And in my brain, that's what I heard Gail talk about, but nobody else heard that today.
That's what I heard.
So I think we need to definitely have clarity on that and certainly make sure that we're translating it to the parents so that people know what to,
Yeah, we'll
how to
have to send it out, that, you know, what it is, and emergency.
I heard that she's definitely still moving towards that goal.
definitely towards that goal, but in the meantime, how,
Yes.
if there's gonna be one person, if it's just the, you know, or one person backstopped by a volunteer or a parent, or there's something that was a little bit more nebulous about that, and I think that people need to understand that. So.
Okay, we'll get clarification.
I think sometimes, having been in that position myself, even with, I can't remember, I think it might have been 14, or when we were going off campus, it was 10, but if you have a child who's sick to their stomach or needs some individual adult attention, particularly depending on the age of the students who sign up for it, it's really helpful to be able to give all of your attention to that one student who needs you and have another adult manage the group, you know, just for a short period of time. Or have somebody at home base that you can contact for help. Or a child needs to go home. I mean, you know, that can happen too. The child needs to go home and you need to go wait with the child for the parent to come pick them up. And if you're doing something else, it's difficult to be in two places at once. Whereas during the school day, you know, I also had the benefit of being in school during the school day, feeling the difference, I guess, and the, you know, the level of the backup. So it's more support.
Yeah.
There's more people.
Yeah, thank you. Yes?
I had a question, maybe mostly for the personnel committee. I've observed a real lack of personnel in the building this year, and I wonder if you are aware of that, and if there's a plan to do more to ask, to communicate the need to the community, or to communicate the needs of parents, or ask for more parent volunteers. But I've seen para-professionals have to be substitute teachers, and that means there isn't a para. I've seen UA teachers have to step in and fill roles that aren't part of their regular assignment during their days when they're supposed to be teaching UA. I've seen different people be called in, and it means that other services aren't being utilized during that time. And I think that part of my concern, especially given the culture that's going on right now, and that there aren't enough adults in the room. And I wonder if that has come to your attention already as a board or as a superintendent, and why it's happening. Like, why aren't there more substitutes being utilized?
There's a shortage everywhere.
There's a shortage of substitutes.
It's a valley-wide issue with that being.
It's not a valley-wide
Nationwide.
Nationwide issue on the
Well, I was
substitutes.
talking about specifically.
But also, we've had some extenuating circumstances, you know, that immediate, so, that are unusual, that happen with the staff, so unfortunately. And I know that they have been filling in as best they can.
I'm really
You
worried
know.
that the
And I agree with you, it would be nice to have, you know, more, but if there's no substitutes to be had,
Well-
it makes it hard to get a substitute.
So what are you doing to get substitutes though? I know that there's a shortage, but I haven't seen extra advertisements. I haven't seen anything in the
They've been
emails.
advertised.
There's been advertisements every day.
It's $125.
It's in the paper every
Yeah.
day, I see the ads.
But it's not in the e-news, there hasn't been anything going out to teachers to say we're short-staffed, does anybody want to be an extra hand in this way or in that way? I just don't think you're utilizing the community that you have available. And if there are substitutes that are willing to go to other schools and not willing to come to ours, like, well, I think that's a question too. Like, but I'm worried that our staff that we have, everybody's been through so much, and they're really being asked to do too
They're
much, and I
stretched.
don't want
Yeah.
to lose any more people. And the kids notice it, even outside of the amount of the culture and the bullying and the bad behavior, they notice that their teachers are stretched, and that there's more yelling than they've seen before, and that people are grumpy. And I need to know what else you can do, and make sure it's on your radar to do more.
I can certainly ask, but I do know that there's a staffing, you know, a shortage. I mean, it's just, yeah, but I will ask what else we can do. I don't know if we can have parents come in the classroom, because then, you know, we're just coming out of COVID too, so that's not necessarily the protocol is to have.
So that doesn't happen anymore?
I used to volunteer.
Right, for like a field
Right.
trip, say, that's taking the 4, 5, and 6 all to Concord, so 4 hours on the bus. Yeah. One classroom teacher not there, building a longhouse. Second classroom teacher there with one para and a music teacher. 3 educators with 4, 5, 6.
Well, Jen was there too, Chart, so there were 4 educators.
Excellent, so 4 educators, but no ask for parent volunteers or other folks on the bus that are spread out in a way to keep our kids that are
We can listen to that.
having a really hard time safe.
Thank you, well, that's.
Yeah, more parent volunteers would be really lovely.
All right.
Mike?
Real quick, I just wanted, the Longhouse got brought up a couple times, and so I don't get to make a chance to make committees, so I just want to point out how great that project was. Not only was it cross-curricular and had core component, core academics, but it branched over UAs, and I think it just should be said that it took a significant amount of personal time on John and Joan's part to make it happen.
I saw them out there by themselves.
If you go out there and look at it, and just the amount of time you spent to find those poplars and cut them down, fell them, bring them out here, and that's he's doing that on his own time. And it's really, really awesome. So hopefully they'll come do a presentation here, but if not, I would really encourage the board to, just talk about that and kind of see there's some really amazing stuff going on next door.
You're absolutely right. Thank you. All right. No non-public?
No.
All right.
My last comment, because Gail wasn't here, so I assume that the tradition of all school recess has been a standing tradition of the grammar school for its tenure. And it went away due to COVID. And when Gail says that all school recess was back, she described it with a chuckle as a blessing and a curse. I'm assuming that's because it's challenging now to have all the students come together because they are struggling. The older kids, the 6th graders, the student council, aren't always leading in the right direction of kindness, right? This is what we're seeing every day in our school. And so I sat in one of these chairs when Gail announced her retirement, and there was a ton of talk about legacy and the legacy that Gail will leave behind and all of the good work that she's done. And I think that it would be really remarkable after this evening, from a call from concerned parents and bring the board into the light of, and the Kevin into the light of, our students are suffering, they're having a hard time. How remarkable would it be to see Gail grab this with motivation and take off in that building to leave the culture of the grammar school healthier than it is right now. So that when our next principal, the next leader comes in, they have a healthier school culture than we have right now. And that would be really, really remarkable to see. And so that's my hope.
Thank you. Okay. Meeting adjourned.
No, you
Good?
have to vote.
Thank you.
Vote.
Motion adjourned. Second.
Hi. Thanks, everybody. Hi, Hank.
Hey.
Stay